When I turned 70, something inside me shifted. It wasn't a sudden epiphany or a dramatic moment. It was quieter than that. A soft, growing whisper that said, "You don't have to keep doing this anymore." For decades, I was the kind of person who always showed up. Birthdays, anniversaries, casual tea invites, last-minute drop-ins. I said yes more times than I wanted to. And every time I walked out the door, I took a little piece of myself with me, a piece I often didn't get back. But something happens when you cross into your 70s. You realize that your time isn't a given. It's not just precious, it's limited. And suddenly, the thought of giving it away for politeness, for obligation, for fear of judgment, begins to feel like betrayal. Not to others, but to yourself. I remember the first time I said no to a dinner invitation after I turned 70. It wasn't personal. I just didn't want to go. My body was tired, my mind needed peace, and frankly, I didn't feel like putting on the performance that small talk often demands. I braced myself for the backlash, for the guilt. But you know what? Nothing happened. The world didn't end. No one came banging on my door demanding explanations. And in that silence, I found something I hadn't felt in years: relief. That moment became the first domino. Soon, I stopped accepting invites out of guilt. I declined gatherings that drained me. I stopped showing up for people who never once showed up for me. And I began redirecting that energy inward, into quiet mornings with my coffee, into walks without timelines, into reading books I actually wanted to finish, into conversations that filled me, not emptied me. There's a powerful kind of freedom in realizing that you're allowed to make yourself the priority, especially at an age where every minute counts more than ever. For years, I was afraid that if I stopped visiting people, I'd lose connection. But the truth is, I gained clarity. I found out who really missed me and who only noticed my absence when they needed something. And what I learned is this: real relationships can handle boundaries. They don't crumble when you say no. They adapt, they understand. And if they don't, maybe they weren't real in the first place. I know it might sound selfish to some, but I no longer confuse self-care with selfishness. I spent decades being available to everyone else. Now, I'm finally available to myself. If you're watching this and you've hit that point, that quiet whisper inside telling you it's okay to stay home, to rest, to say no without guilt, listen to it. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's your soul reminding you that peace matters more than presence. And after 70, that's not a luxury, that's survival. One of the biggest lies we're told as we age is that staying socially busy is the key to staying mentally healthy. But here's what no one says: not all social interaction is good for your emotional well-being. In fact, some of it is absolutely draining. At 40, you might have had the capacity to smile through small talk, nod through gossip, or tolerate energy vampires who never asked how you were doing. But at 70, your emotional tank doesn't refill like it used to. There's this myth that if you isolate yourself, you're inviting depression. But isolation and intentional solitude are not the same. One feels like a prison, the other like a sanctuary. And when I stopped visiting people just to maintain appearances, something incredible happened. My nervous system calmed down, my sleep improved, my thoughts were clearer. I wasn't constantly mentally rehearsing what I'd say to so-and-so, or feeling annoyed about someone else's complaints that they never fixed anyway. Protecting your emotional energy after 70 is not about becoming antisocial. It's about recognizing that your time, your mood, your peace of mind, they are all currency. And you cannot afford to keep spending them on conversations that leave you empty, or people who only want your ear but not your heart. I started asking myself, how do I feel after spending time with this person? Not during, after. Because anyone can fake a smile during a visit. But how you feel once you're back home tells the truth. If I felt heavy, drained, or annoyed, I took that seriously. I stopped giving repeat access to those people. No dramatic announcement, no fights, just distance. And you know what filled that space? Joy, stillness, meaningful calls with people who truly cared. A cup of tea on the porch with no pressure to speak. Rereading a letter from my daughter. Smiling at memories instead of dreading the next RSVP. That's the quiet power of emotional self-respect. You learn to pour into yourself before the world takes your last drop. And once you protect your emotional space, something else happens. You become more present with the people who matter. Not because you're making the rounds out of duty, but because your visits become sacred, intentional, filled with genuine connection, not obligation. So if you've been feeling emotionally tired and can't figure out why, maybe it's not your age, maybe it's the social performance you're still forcing yourself to maintain. You have permission to stop. You have the right to protect your peace like your life depends on it. Because after 70, it does. Some relationships expire, and that's okay. One of the hardest truths to accept in our later years is that not every relationship is meant to go the distance. Some are seasonal, some are situational, and some, truth be told, should have ended long ago. But we hold on, out of habit, out of guilt, out of fear that letting go means we've failed or will be left alone. But here's what I've learned. Holding on to relationships that no longer serve your growth isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. After I turned 70, I took a long, honest look at the people in my life. Not with resentment, but with clarity. Who really showed up for me when I needed them? Who remembered my birthday without Facebook reminders? Who made me feel heard and valued, not just used for advice or nostalgia? That audit was uncomfortable. Some names on that list had been in my life for 30, even 40 years. But just because someone's been in your life forever doesn't mean they belong in your present. Some people only love the version of you that serves them. The younger you, who was always available. The generous you, who never said no. The forgiving you, who made excuses for their neglect. But when you start choosing peace, setting boundaries, and valuing your time, they fall silent. Or worse, they call you selfish. I used to internalize that, but now I see it for what it is: projection. People who benefit from your silence will always be offended by your voice. And that's their work to do, not yours. One by one, I started to let those relationships dissolve. No dramatic exits, no angry letters, just less texting, fewer visits, more space. And in that space, something amazing happened. New relationships began to bloom. Genuine ones, deep ones. I started spending time with people who didn't need me to entertain them or fix their lives. People who were more interested in my well-being than my usefulness. Sometimes, it was a neighbor I'd never truly talked to. Sometimes, it was an old friend who'd quietly stayed consistent. And sometimes, it was simply myself. You don't owe anyone a lifelong seat at your table just because they sat there in the past. The older I get, the more I understand that real relationships are reciprocal, respectful, and nourishing. Anything else is noise, and I've lived long enough to stop apologizing for wanting peace. If you're struggling with guilt about walking away from relationships that feel stale or one-sided, let me tell you something from the heart. You're not being cruel. You're being courageous. Because after 70, time isn't something we borrow. It's something we protect. The unexpected health benefits of stepping back. We often think of health in terms of diet, medication, or exercise. But few people talk about the health toll of constant social strain, the stress of being available, agreeable, and accommodating long past the point of comfort. When I stopped visiting people simply to maintain appearances or fulfill outdated obligations, I didn't just gain time, I gained health. It started small. I noticed I was sleeping better, without the emotional fatigue of tense conversations or long drives back home after social visits. My mind became quieter at night. I fell asleep easier, stayed asleep longer, and woke up feeling genuinely rested for the first time in years. That alone made my blood pressure stabilize, my mood improve, and my sugar levels become easier to manage. But it went deeper than that. The tension in my shoulders, gone. That knot in my stomach that used to show up after certain phone calls, disappeared. My body had been talking to me for years through discomfort and fatigue, but I hadn't listened. I thought I needed more supplements, more checkups, more physical therapy. But in truth, I just needed less people-pleasing. There's a science behind this too. Chronic stress, especially from social obligations that cause anxiety, can elevate cortisol, damage your heart, weaken your immune system, and even accelerate aging. Once I removed myself from those cycles of guilt-driven interactions, I felt my energy return. My skin even looked healthier. I started walking more, not because I had to, but because I had the mental space to enjoy it. And my digestion improved too. No more racing thoughts at the dinner table. No more stress eating before social events. What surprised me most was how my emotional health lifted. Without the constant input from draining conversations or forced smiles, my thoughts became more loving, more forgiving, not just toward others, but toward myself. I no longer judged my slower pace, my need for quiet, or my choice to stay home instead of putting on a face. That inner acceptance, when you stop pushing yourself to meet everyone's expectations, heals more than you realize. There's also something powerful about reclaiming your physical space. When I stopped running around to visit others, my home became more than just a resting place. It became my sanctuary. I rearranged my furniture. I added flowers to my porch. I cooked meals that brought me joy. And most importantly, I slowed down enough to hear what my body and spirit had been trying to say for decades. Thank you for finally choosing me. So no, I didn't isolate myself out of bitterness. I created space for healing. And that healing came not from a pill, but from permission. Permission to rest. Permission to say no. Permission to protect my nervous system from the social noise that once drowned out my well-being. The 6 honest reasons I no longer visit like I used to. By now, you understand it wasn't bitterness or arrogance that made me pull back after 70. It was survival, it was clarity, and it was healing. Today, I want to be honest and put into words the 6 real, deeply personal reasons I stopped visiting people the way I used to. Not to convince anyone, but to help you feel less alone if you're on the edge of doing the same. 1. I no longer chase one-sided effort. I used to be the one who always reached out, called first, drove the miles, remembered the birthdays. But at some point, I realized that a relationship where one person does all the work is not a connection. It's a chore. I stopped being the glue. And you know what happened? Some people never called again. And that silence taught me everything I needed to know. 2. My energy is too precious to waste. After 70, You wake up with a very clear awareness. You don't get your time back. Every phone call that feels forced, every visit that leaves you drained, every gathering you attend just to avoid guilt, that's a day lost. And I won't spend my remaining years pretending to enjoy company I don't. 3. I choose depth over noise. Crowded rooms and loud conversations used to feel like connection. But now, I prefer one deep, meaningful talk over 10 shallow ones. I'd rather sit in silence with someone who sees me than chat with a dozen who don't even listen. 4. My health comes first now. I don't apologize for prioritizing rest. If my body says stay home, I listen. The physical act of visiting used to be easy. Now it can wipe out my energy, and no social event is worth sacrificing my stability or sleep. I've made peace with missing out. There was a time I feared I'd be forgotten if I stopped showing up. But I've come to understand that real friends remember you even in your absence. And peace isn't found in being everywhere. It's found in being exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes, that's at home with a warm blanket, a cup of tea, and your own thoughts. I finally love my own company. This might be the most powerful shift of all. I used to avoid solitude. Now I treasure it. I know myself better than ever. I laugh more often, think more clearly, and feel more grounded when I'm not constantly surrounded by chatter. And in those quiet hours, I found a kind of companionship that no external visit could offer. Each of these reasons is rooted in love, not in bitterness. Love for my well-being, love for the time I have left, and love for the people who truly matter, the ones who understand that just because I'm not physically present doesn't mean I'm not emotionally invested. A message from the heart. Protect your peace. No one else will. If you've made it this far, I want to speak to you directly, not as an expert, not even as a storyteller, but as someone who has lived through the tug-of-war between duty and peace, between being present for everyone and being present for yourself. Let me say it as clearly as I can. You don't owe anyone your exhaustion. At 70, 75, or 85, you are not selfish for wanting peace. You are wise. You are awake. And you are finally free to make choices that nourish your soul instead of feeding social expectations that were never made with your health, happiness, or longevity in mind. The world doesn't make room for quiet elders who choose rest over performance. So you have to make that space yourself. Your life, this chapter of it, is not meant to be a continuation of the old patterns that kept you emotionally tired for years. It's meant to be a soft homecoming, a gentle return to yourself. That could mean fewer phone calls. That could mean saying no to birthday parties. That could mean turning down visits from people who never ask how you're really doing. And that is okay. That is your right. So if you're watching this video and feeling that inner nudge, the pull towards stillness, the desire to simplify, the ache to no longer explain yourself, trust it. That's not laziness. That's inner wisdom. That's your nervous system asking for mercy. That's your heart saying, "Can I finally breathe now?" I stopped visiting people after 70, not because I stopped loving them, but because I started loving myself, deeply, genuinely, for the first time, without apology. And that love meant protecting my mornings, guarding my evenings, making my peace non-negotiable. Here's your call to action. Start listening to your body, your spirit, and your gut. If you're tired, cancel the plan. If someone only calls when they need something, let them miss you. If a visit costs more in energy than it gives in joy, don't go. You've earned this level of clarity. And if someone doesn't understand your boundaries, let them misunderstand. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your own. Thank you for sitting with me through this story. If even one part of this message spoke to you, if you felt seen, heard, or empowered, I ask you to do one thing. Share this video with someone else who might be carrying the same quiet burden. Let them know they're not alone. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment below, and tell us, what's one boundary you're ready to honor in your life today? You matter, your energy matters, and your peace, it's priceless. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, choose rest, choose joy, choose yourself.